actually see you tomorrow after PSATs. So I will give you a 4-minute groan period where you can get that out, and then after that, you get 4 minutes. You get the 4. Once the 4 minutes is done.
Mr. Kane, do you know what time the PSATs is?
It's going to be butting up against the end of the fourth period, probably somewhere between 10:20 and 10:30. Like it will be most of.
I will be here at 10:40.
So.
Can we get like a 4-minute groan period every day?
It's like 1984.
Just remember that 2-minute date
Yep.
on Thursday, so not tomorrow. Tomorrow, basically, what we're going to be doing is looking at the AP questions that we're going to be looking at today. We'll just get a chance to go into a little bit more detailed questions about it compared to what the morning classes are doing. You're not getting secret assignments that first and fourth period. Don't have to worry about it or anything like that. But on Thursday, remember you do have your quiz for civil disobedience, so you got that packet. The notes that you take for it, you can use on the quiz. I'm not collecting notes for points, so you're not getting more credit for it. But certainly it could be helpful when it comes to if you're working on the quiz and whatnot. You can take as many notes as you want, so it's not limited to one sheet. Double-sided. If you have 3 sheets, 4 sheets, 5 sheets, that's perfectly fine. Handwritten notes on the packet aren't going to be usable because you have to use the ones that you have written separately from the packet and that's part of the quiz. After the quiz, you'll then sign out the independent reading books that we have up there. So you'll be choosing, remember, ultimately 2 of the 6, but you'll be doing 1 now and then 1 later on. Under the upcoming dates on your weekly syllabus, it talks about, I think, November the 4th. It has journal number 1 due and the 11th journal number 2. We'll talk about that stuff on Thursday and Friday. So right now you don't know what that means. I'll go over with you Thursday, Friday with your independent reading book, so you'll have a clear picture as to what's going on. So you don't have to worry about that. But after the quiz, you'll sign out that book, and then we'll start talking about those procedures. Just so there's not any confusion, because I think I had people earlier in the day thinking you had a quiz on Friday for a letter from Birmingham Jail. You don't, but hopefully on Friday, going into Monday, we'll talk about the context of the letter from Birmingham Jail, which you just got today. So for the one that says Source B, letter from Birmingham Jail, you have that quiz on Tuesday of next week, a week from today. So Thursday, civil disobedience. Tuesday of next week is letter from Birmingham Jail. Same setup where you can use notes just like you do on Thursday if you want when it comes to letter from Birmingham Jail on Tuesday.
It's letter from Birmingham Jail. That's civil disobedience. What's
Well, a letter from Birmingham Jail is from Martin Luther King Jr., who, you already have experience. In class, we did the I Have a Dream speech. Did anyone read letter from Birmingham Jail? Ninth grade? I think Mrs. Washington uses it sometimes. With some essays. No, I think you'll be okay with it. Thoreau is long-winded. Thoreau's syntax is a little bit different. Thoreau tends to repeat himself quite a bit. King is you would consider, certainly I would say, a more polished, effective speaker, writer. He uses a lot of figurative language, a lot of metaphors and imagery and whatnot, but I think you'll have an easier time following along with it. I wouldn't use that as an excuse, so I'll just read it in one night and rush through it. There's still a lot of complexity going on within it, but I think you'll be more aware of some of the connections, and it's more recent. So when Thoreau is writing about things that are occurring in the 1840s, you're not nearly as aware of the stuff that would be happening in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and stuff like that. Now, civil disobedience is a big influence on King in him writing Letter from Birmingham Jail. So ideally you'll notice some parallels that are taking place, but I think from a readability standpoint you'll find this one to be much easier. Yesterday you did your Capture the Rock DWA. I've graded like 6 of them, so it's going to take a little while. I've said Monday this is the date that I'll definitely get them back to you by. Maybe Friday if all the stars align, but certainly by Monday you'll be able to get that one back. Of the 6 that I've read, they've been nice and good, so that's off to a good start. I will collect them, since I'll see you guys tomorrow, we can do it tomorrow. Today we don't have time, but tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be able to collect those books back. Grapes of Wrath, you'll still hold on to.
You
You're welcome.
6. Is that 6 weeks class?
6 total.
Oh, geez. That would definitely be.
Less than 10%, small sample size. Not making any conclusions yet at this point, but hey, good starts.
Yeah.
We like good starts.
Yeah, that good start leads to
Lee 2.
better.
Let's hope so.
I was gonna say, that's not what that's like. You can have a great start to marathon and
Oh,
then
absolutely.
be dead by the end.
Have a sprint.
Whoa!
Speaking of being dead at the end, let's talk about your AP exam. Thank you for the segue transition.
The packet the other packet that you picked up, where it says 2015, what I have up there is the first question, where I just didn't put the cover sheet on it. Giving you, this is from not last year, but 2 years ago AP exam. These are free response questions. We're going to be taking a look primarily at the first question, but tomorrow we might be able to get to some others. So far, you've been introduced to rhetorical analysis, DRQ, and now you get introduced to the final AP exam free response question, which is always question number 1, synthesis. If you took world history last year, if you're in Euro, 8-push, you're familiar with the DBQ. Similar to the DBQ. Not the same thing, but similar. If you have not or are not taking any of those classes, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know what the DBQ is for us.
Does this have any relation to the BBQ?
When you said you were going to say illegal things, I thought that also was going to eliminate like.
No, that was
those
legal,
things,
but I'm
yeah.
really
Wait, you have to
hungry.
cut this out of like your recording?
What?
You leave that in?
No, all the other classes get to hear my great joke.
Noah, you're an idiot. Yes, that will make the recording. I'll let you know what time when you go on YouTube.
Keep it on
Um,
Keep it on.
Did you fulfill your recording obligation?
She did
Yeah.
Good with the
Yeah.
iPad. You did well.
See, it shows
I did double check to make sure viewing time, and then hey, someone had watched it during this time, so good. The synthesis question. All right, when we talk about AP exam, it's not pleasant. You're not gonna go through the AP exam and be like, you know what? Those are the best 3 hours and 15 minutes I think I've ever spent in my life. This is wonderful. It's mind-numbing and grueling, and it's physically and mentally exhausting. It's terrible in some ways. It's not a typical concept to write essays in 40 minutes. Humans were not specifically designed to read a passage, brainstorm, come up with good ideas, articulate those ideas, communicate those ideas in a nice, polished manner in 40 minutes. So that's not something that we normally want to do. Now, it is something that we have to do. Sorry.
Who's even supposed to make us do it if we're not made to do it?
The College Board
Yeah.
and ETS, that's the testing system that comes up with the questions. So it's not natural in the sense of the way the writing process works. Natural writing process is revision, thinking about things and whatnot. We don't have that
Luxury.
luxury, thank you, better word. However, it's still very doable. And the 3 questions, rhetorical analysis, DRQ, synthesis, all 3 basically ask you to do the same thing. Come up with an argument and support that argument. So if you're doing rhetorical analysis, you're coming up with, this is what King is doing in Letter from Birmingham Jail. This is his purpose. This is what Salinger is doing in The Capture of the Rock. Here's how I know, evidence. DRQ, you folks did the media one, fostering democratic decision making and all that kind of stuff. Are the opinions worthwhile? You came up with an argument, you had support for it. Synthesis is no different. You come up with an argument and you're going to have support for it. The nice thing, and it doesn't sound like 15 minutes are really going to make or break, but they are very nice. For 15 minutes, you get all 3 questions. That does not count towards your 2-hour writing time. So you have 15 minutes to read through the questions, and really it's designed to give you time to read through the passages that accompany the synthesis, source A, B, C, D, E, we go up to F for this one. If you get done with those sources in 10 minutes, then you have 5 minutes to look at the other 2 questions. And you will have pen in hand, and you can make notes, and you can't highlight with a highlighter, but you can make annotations, make notes, circle, underline, star, bells, whistles, whatever you want on your prompts, so that when your 2 hours do begin after the 15 minutes, when they go, your 2 hours have begun, you may begin to write. The hope is that you actually begin to write. And that's nice, because it's not going to be, okay, 40 minutes are up, here's your second question, and you have to brainstorm for it again. You already have some familiarity about what you're going to be writing about. You might not know what all your ideas are yet, but you at least have some ideas of what you're going to do. It helps eliminate the surprises. Most people answer the synthesis first, and then we'll do question 2 and question 3. You go in whatever order you want. You'll get verbal cues. 40 minutes have passed, you should move on to the second question. 40 minutes are left, you should move on to the third, but it's up to you how much time you want to spend. If Nicole thinks that her synthesis essay needs 45 minutes, she can take 45 minutes. Then she could do her argument question in 37 minutes and the rhetorical analysis in 38, and it still adds up to 2 hours. So you do have some flexibility to do different things with it. Of the roughly 750, 800 students that I've had in the past that have taken the AP exam, very few, I'm talking less than 10, have complained that like their hand hurts when the essay, when it's all done. So it could be 11, but by us doing so many TWAs, and we do a lot, you kind of get used to it. And also, writing in pen is so much easier than pencil.
It just flows.
It does, which it sounds weird to say. This is so smooth and it's just flowing, but it's physically, it's less exertive to write with pen than pressing down with pencil. So if you do find, after yesterday you're going like this, maybe start writing in pen. Now, writing on a single sheet of paper on a hard desk like this with pen, I don't like doing that, but you can have a stack of papers underneath, so it gives you, that smoother surface. Your essay booklet's like 20 pages long, so you have plenty of pages in that. If you're thinking about that comfort level, it's definitely there with the essay packet.
Do you have an inkling of how much it is?
Really don't answer that one.
Does the
That was good enough.
Does the type of pen matter?
No quills. Birds cannot be harmed with your pen. Ballpoint, although like someone, I don't remember if it was JT was asking, but like the G2 Pilot pens, those things would be okay. They're like the sparkly gel pens, no, and also black or blue ink. They want, and really navy blue or black ink is what they want. If your pen does not meet their protocol, which it has happened, they have the cheap Bic pens, which are miserable to write with.
No way. Of course it's not.
Any questions about setup then for what's going on with AP exam? And I don't know, some people would like this, some people don't. You do the multiple choice first. So you have your multiple choice hour, you take like your 10-minute potty break, then you come back, you have your 15 minutes to look at the prompts, and then you have your 2 hours. So that's why it ends up being like a 3.5-hour experience. I think I would prefer doing essays first, but you don't. It'll be passage analysis. But the passage analysis, the multiple choice, you do get in the habit of the reading, analyzing, kind of thinking deeply, critically, and then you can kind of parlay that into the essay. So, it could be 6 one way, half a dozen the other. Couple things, since I did mention DBQ, push, Euro, world history. The DBQ is worth more than the other free response questions. For AP English, all 3 essays are worth the same. They're all 18.33333%. So that's how you get the 55% for the essay portion. So it's not like the synthesis matters more than the others. I think when people see the sources, they kind of go, ooh, this is the really important one. They're all the same. And we don't know what the synthesis question is going to be. I have no idea what passage is going to get used for rhetorical analysis. I have no idea what the topic is going to be for the argument. But you and I know there will be a rhetorical analysis, a synthesis, a DRQ. So the only thing that I can promise is you won't get surprised by what you have to do, because we'll go through the motions of doing all this stuff. But I told you at the beginning of the year, by the beginning of November, you'll know everything that's going to be on the AP exam. It's October 18th, you now know everything that's going to be on the AP exam. Multiple choice passages, which we've done, a DRQ, rhetorical analysis, and synthesis. So it's not necessarily learning new stuff, it's more of making sure you just know what to do with those topics.
You said our test was on May 10th.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday, May 10th, 8 o'clock. Speaking of new material, I did forget to mention with weekly syllabus, I think it was on Sunday night or yesterday, I sent out Quizlet links for literary terms. Next Wednesday, remember you have your first literary term quiz. So the literary terms, they're on Quizlet, but they're also in your big course syllabus. So the first page, which is like page 25, you have that first page for next Wednesday, which is going to be matching. All right, so synthesis. They all pretty much look the same so far as the setup, the structure of them. They're broken up into 3 parts,
1, 2, 3, and you have your list of your sources down here. Generally, the sources are 6 or 7. Or not generally, the sources are 6 or 7. I've never seen it at 5, and I can't recall any that have gone up to 8, or 9. So you might have sources A through F like you do in this case. Some years there might be a source G that would show up. The first part, the first chunk, and they are always broken up into these 3 sections. The first part is more of an introduction to the topic. So many high schools, colleges, and universities have honor codes or honor systems, sets of rules or principles that are intended to cultivate integrity. These rules or principles often take the form of written positions on practices like cheating, stealing, and plagiarizing, as well as on the consequences of violating the established codes. So it's not giving you any directions, it's not telling you what you have to do, but it's certainly bringing up this whole idea about honor codes, honor systems, academic integrity. That's going to be the issue at hand. So after reading the first part, you know what the concept's going to be about, but you don't necessarily know what you have to do quite yet. Second part. Now, this is the actual prompt. So, of the 3 parts, this is the one that you certainly want to make sure you focus on and are aware of. Carefully read the following 6 sources, including the introductory information for each source. By introductory information, they would be talking about the citation that you have here, as well as any extra information that shows up in italics here. That's all considered part of the source. Then, synthesize information from at least 3 of the sources and incorporate it into a coherent, well-developed argument for your own position on whether your school should establish, maintain, revise, or eliminate an honor code or honor system. So, establish, maintain, revise, or eliminate. This last sentence, this is now the prompt, this is the task. Your own position on whether your school should establish, maintain, revise, or eliminate an honor code system. That's what you have to write about. Why give you those 4 options? Establish, maintain, revise, eliminate. Because I would say you're probably only going to write about one of them. Like, you don't have to do all 4. There's no way you can do all 4. But why would they give you so many options? Based on and your school. Who are you writing about? On whether your school, so you're writing about North Hills, should establish, maintain, revise, or eliminate. Different schools have different codes. So you can't say, here's the one code, do you want to maintain it? They don't know what that code is. Some schools don't have one. So if they don't have one, you would need to, if you wanted, to establish it. If you have one and you like it, you would then argue to maintain, if you like it. If you think there is some issues with it, but small issues that would make it better, then you would revise. If you think that it should be completely gone, then you would eliminate. If your school doesn't have one and you don't think it should have one, you could maintain. We don't have one. Life is good. Let's keep it that way. So there are options, but it's again because you have over 500,000 kids from who knows how many schools taking this test. They're not all going to be the same. So you do want to make sure you read the prompt carefully, because if this part gets past you about whether your own school should establish and you start writing about different schools should do different things, you are technically off prompt, off topic, and that's going to cause the score to go down. So within the middle part, certainly pay attention to that last sentence to make sure there's not any confusion about what you're supposed to do. I would say there's probably at least 2 other things from this middle part that you want to pay attention to. One of them is numeric.
At least 3 sources.
At least 3 sources, and that will never change. So whether there are 6 sources or 7 sources, they always want you to use at least 3. Katie writes a beautiful essay, well written. She takes ownership of the prompt and she uses 2 sources. She gets a 4 because you haven't fulfilled the requirements. So you have to use at least 3. I feel like for the DBQs, the wording of them, I think they want you to use as many as you can. That's not the case here. You can use 3. You can use those 3 effectively. You get an 8. You could use 6 sources. You could use them terribly. You still get a 2. So it's not that as you use more sources, the essay score goes up. There's not a inherent correlation between those 2 things. Also, for the DBQ in the social studies classes, part of the test is, do you understand the context of the source, who the author was, the time period, all those things? That's not part of it. It's understood that you're reading the source probably for the first time, so you do get a little introductory information. They're not checking to see, do you know who Aaron Bacall is and where this source is coming from? Now, it is important that you read the source and you do appropriately understand it. If you quote something out of context, that could hurt you. A couple years ago, there was a question about national monuments, and basically the wording of the prompt was, develop a position as to when it is appropriate to establish a national monument recognizing someone or something, and what is the appropriate location for it. So you could go C-247, there should be a statue of Mr. King, out in the hallway. It's like a colorful pen.
Change it every day.
And so there would be references to Mount Rushmore and things like that. There was a source that talked about Washington, D.C. and all the national monuments that are in D.C.'s National Mall. And if you've ever been to D.C. and they make reference to the mall, it's different from Ross Park, Century 3, all those things. So a person wrote an essay where they were going, the mall in D.C. is not an appropriate place for a monument because I don't need to see George Washington when I'm going shopping for a pair of shoes. They misread the prompt, or not the prompt, but they misinterpreted the passage because the National Mall in D.C. is really where all the government buildings and monuments and all that kind of stuff is. Because they made reference to the Holocaust Museum. That's what it was. And the person didn't think that the mall was an appropriate place for the Holocaust Museum. Because why would that topic come up when you were shopping? So that's a way in which a source could get misused, misinterpreted. So if you're afraid that, hey, I'm not sure, I'd probably steer clear of that source.
JT, sounds like something I would do.
You could say they really got mauled.
No.
That's equivocation now. You're like shifting spelling and all those things. So 3 would be important, and I'd say there's one other term that you would want to make sure you're clear with. Maybe in the first line, second sentence, second word of that second sentence. Since it is called the synthesis question, we should probably make sure we know what it means to synthesize. Anyone want to give an idea or guess as to what does it mean to synthesize?
Create your own idea.
Create, okay. You do need to create your own idea. Yeah, that's definite.
Sympathize.
Makes you think of sympathize. Sympathize with my essay. Andy,
Put something together.
like build.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then
Create, build. Word that I'll use quite a bit also, and not that these 2 are incorrect, I'll use blend. Because if you are going to synthesize sources, synthesize information, you are bringing it together. So yes, you do use those sources to create and build an argument, but you need to make sure that you already have your own. So the sources are there to enhance your argument and make it better. Where folks will certainly run into trouble, the most common problem that people will have is they'll summarize the sources. This is what the sources say. This is their viewpoint. But then I don't know what Hannah's viewpoint is, or Sam's, or Alexis. So you need to be able to come up with your own idea and then use the sources to explain support. So it's like doing a DRQ, but you just have some sources as backup that you can use to kind of help your argument along. You can use sources that you disagree with and explain the flaws that are within their argument, and that can strengthen your own. The last part then, down here, tends to be pretty much the same wording for every single prompt for synthesis. Your argument should be the focus of your essay, which is certainly an important concept. Use the sources to develop your argument and explain the reasoning for it. Avoid merely summarizing the sources. Don't do this, don't do this. Indicate clearly which sources you're drawing from, whether through direct quotation, paraphrase, or summary. You may cite the sources as source A, B, or you can use the descriptions in the parentheses. So you could make reference to source A, or you could say the cartoon, and they'll know which one you're looking at. You're not creating a works cited page. They're not testing you on MLA format. You don't have to create footnotes, but you do at some point have to incorporate at least 3 of those sources into your argument. What's that?
I wrote my TWA and MLA for my Instagram.
Well done.
You double spaced.
No. I was
With a
thinking-
header.
I was thinking about double spacing, but I was wondering if my essay or my TWA would have been 6 pages long if I double spaced.
So, what do we do now? Like, you have this prompt, let's say you have to write the essay, what's the next step?
Choose 3. Which is that?
I'd say no. And you said choose your 3 sources?
After you read through all of them. but
I'd
I'm
say
assuming
no.
That's wrong, yeah.
Yeah, that's wrong. Nope.
That's alright, I
Why
tried.
do you pick your position?
I would, if you, and it's gonna depend upon the topic and the issue, I would try to come up with your own idea first. If you come up with your own idea first, there's a less chance then of you summarizing the sources or developing your sources strictly around the topic. Now, some topics might be out there where you go, I have no idea, and you need the sources to kind of facilitate some thinking on your hand. But for the most part, you want to try to develop your own position. Anybody have a position about establishing, maintaining, revising, or eliminating an honor code or honor system in North Hills High School?
Revise.
Revise. Why? What were you guys gonna
That
say?
was revised.
Revise,
Maintain.
maintain. Okay. Why revise, Angelina?
I would say the dress code is the big one.
Wait, I'm sorry.
The dress code.
Well, you're going off topic now
Not on your honor.
because it has to be honor code.
Oh, honor code will probably strengthen the use of technology in the classroom. Because can't you like use Safari to look up answers?
Possibly. So maybe revise. You were going maybe maintain. And certainly, we're not going to come to agreement as to what we need to do. I bet those are probably the 2 most popular ones. However, I will throw out a question. What's our honor code?
Is it
Don't do it.
North Hills Honor Code? The students against disruptive decision.
Sad.
That's sad.
I don't think I've read the
Well,
handbook.
that's the first thing
Years.
that's
It's in the handbook.
Excellent.
It's one of the sections in the handbook.
Who has read the honor code word for word within the last 3 years?
Never read it.
Okay.
To be
So, I
honest,
mean-
confuse the student handbook with the honor code, so.
I've never even looked at either. Other than that, student handbook looks nice.
Yeah. Do we have one, number one? And your student handbook, it's not in print, it is online. And then you still do like a little signature sign off. Certainly people will sign off on knowing that handbook, but they have not actually read. And the same thing certainly can happen with parents. So, part of the issue could be, do we have one? Part of the issue could be, do we need one? And I think also something like, what's the point of an honor code? What is it supposed to do? In theory, and maybe in practice.
Supposed to stop students from cheating.
Okay. Do we have a cheating problem? Or do we have an academic dishonesty problem at North Hills High School? Because if you're going to say we have a problem, I guess you might still maintain it, because then you don't get caught. Or that's when you might start to argue, does it need revision? JT will tell you the percentage of high school students who have admitted to cheating. 98%.
Is that actually what
Amazingly, those 2% always sit in these chairs who go like, no, not us, never.
in this little?
And this is that 2% bubble. No, a nationwide study, 98% admit to cheating at some point in high school. So, one of the things might be, is
If you ever took one full history class, you'd never be cheating.
100%.
I got caught cheating.
if 98% have admitted to it, that probably means it's a problem, or it's at least something that deserves attention. The other thing to consider if I tell you 98% of people admit to cheating, what kind of becomes a question for you about that 98%? Like, what are you viewing as cheating?
Even the small stuff.
So, copying homework in homeroom or the cafeteria, is that cheating? Well, I just want to get the answers. JT showed me how to do the problem so that I could answer the other ones. My math teacher lets me look at the back of the book for the odd number questions, so why can't I look at someone else's paper for the even number questions? Mr. Kane let me take that bubble sheet home for my multiple choice, so hey, if you're letting it leave the room, shame on you. Spark Notes is not cheating under any circumstances, Mr. Kane. You're wrong.
I mean, if you use it in conjunction.
With the book. So, in order for you to kind of decide how you want to look at it, you might need to figure out, what do you constitute as cheating? Is it a problem in the school? Do we actually have a code itself? Answering these questions might not let you know exactly what topics you want to look at, but it certainly could help with revise, maintain. Some might argue that it's time to really establish one. Maybe we have one in theory, but we don't have one that people know. Or some might take the position, you know what, in this age of technology, how are you going to keep it out? You may as well not worry about it, eliminate it, it's not going to be a problem. All four of those are still feasible options for anyone to take, but I think you do need to kind of consider these aspects to it. And this is the part that makes that AP exam so hard. Because for all three questions, you have to think critically.
Thinking so.
The writing's the easy part. I mean, yes, physically it's draining, but it's coming up with the ideas that can be a little bit more taxing.
Probably should have figured you were gonna think.
Well, but I mean, it's an English class,
Yeah.
but really, it's a critical thinking class. I mean, everything that we do is based around that critical thinking aspect somehow, some way. I would say we just kind of use English, quotation marks on purpose, as the means to do it. I'm not trying to say changing answers or anything. Still thinking revise. I know you were going revise initially.
I would probably not answer the question.
I don't recommend doing that. JT, you were saying
I
maintain.
think I might stay.
Okay. And again, it's not that, just like the argument question, it's not that one of these is correct. The correct thing to do is to take a position and support it. Your job is not to persuade. Your job is not to convince. Your job is to take a stand and validate the logic of that argument. So it's just like the other ones. I don't agree with what Katie states, but she does have to support her overall argument. Of the sources that you get, and then again, you're going to have 6 or 7, at least one of them will be a visual source. And so certainly source A would be a visual source, and also for our purposes, source E, this one, would be a visual source because you have a little bit of a chart to it. I'm not worried about the chart yet. I want to look at source A in the time that we have left. Any ideas as to how you could use this source? Down there? You could. Because and a lot of times visual sources will have words also thrown in there. So you certainly could use this part. Now there is quote. It's not quote that you can attribute to a direct person because it's fitting within the context of the cartoon, but certainly he's going, recent research has shown that a spy cam can greatly improve the honor code. Any other ideas? Like, you cannot go, this would not be legitimate use of the source. Cheating is a problem in Great Britain, so it's a worldwide epidemic that must be addressed. I mean, that's a little cheap just because you see Great Britain showing up there.
It's not developing thing. Now it's like usually cheating.
Mm-hmm. What about it? To do what?
Support your argument.
What can I pull? Don't worry about the word. Well, Okay, say the words aren't part of the source that I'm going to use. Still taking the words in consideration, how can I still use this? Like what, in theory, why would people not cheat?
Because it's the moral thing to do.
Okay, so it's academically dishonest. According to this, why won't people cheat? The consequences, fear. You know, someone's watching them, which if you like that idea, you should read 1984. So, as opposed to it being a moral issue, no cheating because of fear. That could be part of the issue. Maybe the revision isn't just to the honor code, but it's a revision to the culture. People don't cheat not because they don't think it's the right thing to do. People don't cheat because they're afraid to get caught. Maybe that honor code does need to be strengthened to where the punishment's not a Saturday if you copy something, but you get out of school suspension for a month, zeros for all assignments. That'll teach them a lesson. It would be.
I tell you, I'm no cheat.
You're saying you cheat.
What?
Yes.
Going back to what Noah said, what's the problem with cheating? It is, ideally, it's dishonest. So the whole hope here is that you are going to stop dishonesty through spy cam, fear through spying, which is what?
Illegal.
Dishonest. So, you know, part of the conundrum is how can you solve an issue about dishonesty if you're going to do it through dishonest means? We'll pick up with this stuff tomorrow after your 4-minute grown session.
I guess maybe we should have one of those every day.